You are listening to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast, where we strip away the noise, unleash our truth, and align with our highest self. Let's dive into today's episode. Jackie Summerman is an artist, a healer, and non-binary witchy human. They have been practicing in the occult, esoteric, and magical world for over 20 years, with just over 5 years running their own holistic bodywork practice, offering massage therapy, herbalism, and channeled spiritual work. They have a deep love, understanding, and education on universal energies and have devoted their life and practice towards dismantling the spells cast upon us by capitalism and racial supremacy through helping the greater human community find their way back to spirit and each other by focusing on healing our own relationships to our bodies, our souls, our closer communities, and the land upon which we find ourselves. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Yes, in honor of the October holiday and the October theme, this witchy theme that we have going on, my first question for you is, you've been studying and practicing the esoteric, occult, and witchcraft for 20 years. What originally sparked your interest, and what has kept you on this path for so long?
Yeah, that's a really great question. What originally sparked? There was a time when I was 7 years old and I had this really crazy dream about a witch in a bog, and it was terrifying actually, but it felt like that sort of sent me down this path for a very long time. But I always knew I was a witch from a very young age. I would be practicing like jumping out of a tree with a broomstick. Like very dangerous thing to do, but I would find all of my like tall surfaces and just be like, okay, the spell is like green eyes, blue eyes, red eyes, eyes as this like young child. And I was always a witch for Halloween, and it was just something that felt a part of my soul. And then the internet came alive right when I was also like in kindergarten, was when the internet became a thing. And then when I was like 15 years old, that's when you really started to explore the online chat platforms. And I just got to explore the internet in a really witchy way of like looking up spells. And my first grimoire was like printed spells that I found off of the internet in a binder. And so it's just been a huge part of me and my experience. But it also hasn't always been that way. So it's been actually a pretty wild journey of this path getting sidetracked. There's a lot of Christian upbringing there as well. And yeah, but it just felt like really important for me to hold down the fort in my family, to be like this generation's guiding force of being like, no, this exists, and carrying on that lineage, even though everyone else in my family may not be. But I don't know if that makes sense at all, just being like that person in this generation.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, if I'm understanding it correctly, there's like this ancestral lineage that you've had, and you are feeling called to continue that, where other people in your family may or may not stray, but you're like, no, I am the one. It's almost like how somebody, and I'm totally also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like when somebody says, I have to have a son to carry on my legacy, like that name or whatever. It feels like that to me.
Yeah. We don't really come from a long line of witches. We weren't like, I'm not one of those where I'm like, oh, I come from a long line of witches. It was just like, no, there's about 5 of them and a lot of our ancestry. I've talked with them and had some conversations through meditation and ancestral practices. And there's also a lot of hardcore colonial Christian puritanical ancestors and colonizers in my line. And so it felt important it feels like a lighthouse. Like I'm a lighthouse for the ancestral line of just being like, no, I'm holding down this vibration, not just for my blood or my ancestry or future descendants, but also for the collective as well,
Mhm.
too, as this is it's important to have more witchy people out in the world to help with the vibration of the collective. And so it's not just for the ancestral line, I just happen to be that person, but also for the collective as a
Oh, I
really
love that. Thank you for clarifying.
yeah.
And how I love that you were like, "I'm gonna fly out of this tree," and it sounds like it was probably a painful physically painful childhood.
I've definitely broken a lot of bones. So,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
I
so
was
much fun.
definitely
So I love witchy stuff. I don't think that there was like a specific thing when I was growing up, but I did have a mushroom journey experience that I never would have that's not something that I've ever really thought of or bring into my view, but it was just this crazy experience where it was like of 5 women, and there was this symbol, and I can't really remember exactly. It reminded me like the Star of David or something like that. And it was like on our robes, and there was like 5 of us standing, and I was in the middle, and we were like in cloaks, and you couldn't see our heads. And it just felt, oh my God, I've been a witch before. That's the impression that
mm,
I got from it. And it was such a
mhm.
cool experience. But it was just so crazy because for me, sometimes it's hard sometimes when I'm like, if I that was my first mushroom experience, but for me, is this stuff in my subconscious or is this like really something deeper? Am I making this stuff up? And it was for me, I couldn't have made that up because it never came into my brain. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's I get that all the time. We're like, "Is this real? Is it really happening?" And mushrooms have such an ancestral vibration to them. They are like such an ancestral it's the mycelium. They've been around for it's one of the main reasons why we have language. And so it's yeah, it's like huge ancestral and earth medicine, very grounding. So not that's awesome that you had that vision. But everybody, "Oh, is this real? Am I making this up? Is this in my head?" Is such I get that all the time, and I've been there too. Is this real? Is this really happening? And that answer is yes to both. It's in your head. You are making it up, and it is also real. It's simultaneous. It is whatever you need it to be.
Mhm.
Do you need it to be real? Then it's real. Do
Yeah.
you need it to be made up in your head? Then it's made up in your head. And that's a really important thing that I think is because it doesn't matter and it also matters. And that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, simultaneously.
Yeah. I had like other amazing experiences that I was like totally, oh, I'm on a different vibration. I just thought that one was so odd because I was like, if this was made up in my head, what would have brought me there? You know what I mean? Yeah, it was just crazy. Sorry, I'll move to okay, so the next question. For listeners new to these terms, how would you explain the difference between esoteric, occult, and witchcraft?
That is a great question too. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the definitions of occult or esoteric, specifically those two things. I use them synonymously, and specifically occult and esoteric. And I know that there are very specific connotations but unfortunately I cannot speak too terribly on the difference between specifically occult and esoteric. I know that esoteric specifically might have something to do with more like it's on the outskirts, it's
Mm,
on the periphery. And then the occult is very much like Golden Dawn, the Thelema, sort of Aleister Crowley aspects of it's a cult on the outskirts that practices magic. And so it's like very much more organized and has a very
mm,
specific way of how they do magic, but they're both also under the umbrella of magic and also technically witchcraft.
okay.
And so witchcraft has is the umbrella of occult esotericism falls underneath those two
Okay.
things because you can practice witchcraft however you want to. but but my understanding is that the occult is very specifically about, I think, like that time frame when Aleister Crowley and the Golden Dawn were active. And that's where when people think of the occult, they are like, that's what that means, the occult. Because it's like an organization of witchcraft practitioners is
Okay.
also where that comes into. But witchcraft is a more qualifier term of, which is also, you could call spiritual healing witchcraft if you really wanted to. Like people use that qualifier for a lot of different things, and it's a big semantic battle of what you technically call witchcraft and what isn't. And it's actually like huge in the witchcraft community of what is witchcraft? Do you have to do spells in order to do that? And that's a huge rabbit hole that I'm happy to go down, but I just wanted to let you know that that opens a door into a very fun semantic conversation about what exactly is witchcraft, what qualifies that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's manifestation is like a new age form of like witchcraft, or what does Joe Dispenza say? It's like these key terms that I guess make it lighter. Like you said, there's other things like spell casting and things like that, but I also think we can cast that within our intentions and our words. And so while I think it's like the umbrella of also these like newer age or ways that people are making it, I don't want to say lighter, but like softer instead of saying like it's witchcraft and being like, ooh, it's, oh, I'm manifesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the new age because I think that's actually something that's really important to talk about, especially as it pertains to witchcraft. Because the new age actually has a lot of white supremacist undertones to it.
Mm.
And that's why it's being softer. They are codifying what witchcraft is, and they're taking Christianity and they're putting it on top, and they're calling it something else because Christianity also has witchcraft in it. Catholicism has magic and spell casting and candles, and you talk to saints, which is like its
Mm.
own pantheon. And so there is a lot of colonization in New Age of being like, we're calling it manifestation. We're not
Yeah.
calling it spell casting. We're calling it this softer, lighter thing because then it's more palatable to the masses,
Yes.
and which is incredibly, it's like it's colonizer language. It's also like big white women problem. Specifically that I am also a white woman. I'm non-binary, but I was born woman. And it's something that I think a lot of people in spiritual communities need to keep an eye on if they're going down, if they're going to start calling themselves a spiritual quote unquote girly, if they're going to start calling themselves a witch, that they have to understand how the new age is capitalism spun as spirituality, that it is still part of the system of oppression because it is an appropriation of indigenous practices, traditional practices of magic and witchcraft, and just relabeling it to market manifestation retreats and whatnot. So I think that's just really important to talk about and remember, as if you consider yourself a part of the new age spirituality, you really got to do some hardcore introspection about how you might be upholding those systems of oppression.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that because I think so, and it's all over the place where one thing is spun in some way where it's like they psychologically are creating what they want for the masses, basically,
Mm.
if that makes any sense. But that's how I look at a lot of different things. Like when you get really ingrained in it, like I was doing, and this is totally on a different subject, but I was doing this talk on health and just fitness, health, whatever. And I was like protein bars and things like that, and like breakfast time. All this stuff was literally made to commercialize and get you to buy things and say,
Mhm.
you need to have breakfast at this time. You need to have a protein snack in between. And it's not, none of it is true, and we buy into it because it's like what we should do and that's how you're healthy. And so it's very important to pay attention to why we're doing things, how we're doing things. Is that commercial, or is that thing that you're like, "Oh, I need this because it'll fix me." that's where we step back a little bit and dig a little deeper into we can control our actions and we can control our internal state. And if we feel like something outside of us is going to fix that, then it's probably not. And we probably need to dig a little bit deeper. But that's a totally different topic. It just made me think of how, like, all the different ways that mind control happens.
Yeah, because capitalism is using witchcraft on us. They're using spell casting. Capitalism is part of the occult, if you would, where they're using magic and they're casting spells on us out to consume and to feed the beast. And they do rituals. The fact that we have seasonal holidays like Labor Day and other banking holidays, all of the banking holidays coincide with the wheel of the year from Wicca. And so that's their way of replacing those regular holidays with banking holidays so then they can do
Mm,
those things. But they are also doing witchcraft. They just don't want you to know it. And so it's there. And so it's just paying attention to who is it serving. Like when you are being told that you have to do something, it's because they've taken your power away from you. And that's like part of how they control you, which is why witchcraft is so powerful because it's about taking your power back. And that's like
right.
how they're spinning it as cool, take your power back, but you have to take your power back through capitalism because capitalism is still important and we still need to be in a capital, blah, 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 blah. But no, witchcraft is radical. Witchcraft is inherently an activism revolutionary act that is about dismantling systems. Anyway, that's another diatribe. But if you consider yourself a witch, you also have to realize that you are now aligning yourself with freedom, with revolution, with being a heretic, because that's what it's like being powerful instead of letting other people dominate you. You become the power because we are all powerful. We are powerful creatures and beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Looking back over your 20 years of practice, how has your beliefs and practices evolved? And are there things that maybe you had believed in really strongly at first that maybe changed over the years?
Yeah. Actually, it goes right back to the realizing how much my practice was still colonized, the biggest changes. And also that what I was doing was going to send me to hell because I grew up in a really strong Christian background. I went to Episcopalian school. I went to Methodist church every Sunday with my grandparents. I went to Catholic school. I've run the gamut through Christianity, minus baptism, but the Baptists, I never really got to experience them, but that's okay. I don't really need to. But there was like this huge ingrained, if you do witchcraft, you are condemning yourself to Satan. And I had to really go through a dark night of the soul to realize that is not true. If anything, feel I feel closer to God, to the divine, because I still believe in God, just in a very different way. He's not some white male sky daddy,
Right.
Santa Claus, like very much not, but still a presence there, and is also different. Yeah, could go down a whole rabbit hole about that too, but yeah, it has actually changed my belief system and my religion because also witchcraft is not a religion, it's a practice. Religion is also a practice. But yeah, it's just helped me change the way that I approach spirit and has come out on the other side. The biggest way that it has changed over 20 years is realizing how much work I, as a white bodied person, have to do to be in reciprocity with spirit and the land and my community, and how witchcraft is also a really major way of serving your community, serving your land, and being a bridge between spirit and the material plane. And so you have a lot of responsibility and you need to be in right relationship with it. So that's the biggest way that it has changed. And it's been really amazing and eye-opening. And you have to be really humble to do it too.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking like some of the things that bring you closer, some of maybe the practices that you do that are in
For sure.
community?
Yeah, so I'm actually like about to start a really fun thing, but I've been involved in authentic relating for a really long time. And so what really, I know it's not really like witchcraft related, but communication is like part of my activism and like a really big way of we need to rethink how we're communicating with ourselves and communicating with each other instead of assuming malice of the other. We need to assume that we have good intentions. And I think that's actually can relate to spirit in a really big way because we're like so afraid. There's a lot of fear that's related to that. And so it feels bigger. So I have to think about this because
Yeah.
it's a really good question. How do I show up with witchcraft in my community? Really, it has to do more with how I'm showing up with to the spirits of the places that I am living in and like being in reciprocity with them and then also being of service to people around me, to the people that I am in community with, which is like showing up and space holding. That's just part of me and how I show up in that. But also doing protection spells for protesters, do cleaning up, like picking up trash, being an activist for the environment also as a healer, like you, if you consider yourself a holistic healer, you have to be an activist for um, equal housing, like fair housing and housing opportunities, and all of these other like big systematic issues that people are facing because that impacts their health. And so, like their environment, can they sleep somewhere? What's the quality of their food? Are they, how's their nervous system? Because there's so many other things that impact the nervous system. And so just trying to address those bigger issues to the community, but then also taking your friend out on a date or something like that. Not in a romantic way, but just like showing up
Right.
for the people, physically showing up and just being like, hey, how can I help? How can I be here for you? And then also checking in with yourself and making sure that you're also taking care of yourself too, but not to the detriment that you are isolating yourself out of fear of being dysregulated. Like you just have to fuck around and find out
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
So, what is some common misconceptions about occult practices that you would like to dispel?
Absolutely. Oh, thanks. Nice use of the word dispel. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. Things that I'd like to dispel about witchcraft and the occult. Specifically, I'll speak to witchcraft just because I'm not really a part of the occult. I've studied the occult a lot. There's a lot of there, but things that I'd like to dispel about witchcraft is that aesthetic. We gotta step away from looking the part. I know that there is a really big, it's more about the feeling. Do you feel it? And don't worry, stop trying to do witchcraft for Instagram. Just it's like that's one of the things, not for Instagram. Witchcraft is not for the aesthetic. Witchcraft is real and it requires your full presence and attention. And so that's one of the things or quote unquote rumors or misconceptions that I think people don't understand is that it has to look a very specific way
Mhm.
in order for it to be witchcraft. And that is not true. There are so many, it's so personal. Witchcraft is inherently personal. It is about your relationship, your personal relationship to spirit. Because if you think about like your relationship to one of your good friends is going to look different than one of their relationships to one of their other friends, right? It may be similar, you might jive, it's part of the thing, you find your community and there's a lot of like flow between those elements, but yeah, it does not have to look a very specific way in order for it to be real. You need to feel it and be present with it. And you don't need a bunch of crystals. You don't need a bunch of candles. You just need your body, your intention, your breath. You have all of the elements inside of you, inside of your body already. It does help. There are things to add on to that. But yeah, I think that's the biggest one for sure. You don't need deities. You do not need to worship a deity in order to practice witchcraft. And yeah, those seem like the most important ones for sure.
I love that you said that because it reminds me of when I first got into practicing Reiki. I had this like really cognitive dissonance between what I was supposed to do and what I felt like I wanted to do. And it was because everybody that I saw, like you said, looked a certain way. And
Mm,
I really didn't resonate with that. I would go into a room and be like, I feel like I don't fit in because I almost feel, and it's no shame to anybody that wants to wear whatever they want, but I almost felt like it was a production. And I'm like, that's not, I wear a suit. I come in and I don't look like I do Reiki to most people, but I don't feel like you should look like something to do something. And so that was like I felt like almost made me feel discredited, and that's been something that I had to struggle with in the beginning, and now I really want to embrace that and have it be like, no, you can look like anything. There's
mm.
no certain look to somebody that's a healer or does witchcraft or spell casting or has any modality at all. You don't have to look a certain part. It's the same as a career. You don't have to look a certain way to be in a certain company or a mechanic at an auto part. And
Yeah,
we just have these preconceived ideas of what that looks like. And so that's what came up for me when you mentioned that. And I love that you said that because I think some of us can feel almost like a fraud, even though it's like the heart's in it and your mind and body's in it. And so how am
yeah,
I a fraud when I don't look a certain way? And I think that's important.
absolutely. Yeah. Because you also want people to take you seriously, and especially if you are offering a service. So there's a nuance here, right? One, it really doesn't matter, but also it does matter simultaneously. Going back to, is it real or is it in my brain?
Yeah.
It's both, right? Because if you walk in and like people have an expectation
Hmm.
of what a witch or a healer or how a mechanic looks like, they have an expectation of who that person is in their brain because that's what they have been fed. And
Right.
so, in a way, you do have to meet them halfway. And then once you've established that, you can help them break down that understanding or that misconception that in order to be a thing, you have to look a certain way. And then again, it goes back to the feeling. Okay, how do I feel? How do I feel most like a witch? How do I feel most like a mechanic? If I want to embody that energy, then what do I need to wear in order to feel like I am doing that? And a lot of times you have to put on that costume because also like when people have, I've got that costume too. I've got the hat, I've got the gown, I've got the thing, I've got the costume, but it is just a costume and it also can hold a lot of symbolic weight to it. And it's more so that you are helping your intuition, you're helping your mindset and your spirit feel the part. And I think that's where people get stuck is that they are like, cool, I'm just going to fake it until I make it. And then they just keep faking it.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not making it. It's because they just are like, I'm just projecting this, but they're not also doing the literal put your hands in the fucking mud work. I should have asked if I could have cursed. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you can totally.
Okay. Great. Excellent.
I don't look like it, but I usually cuss like a sailor.
Right. There you go. Misconception, right? There's like these perceptions, and we are always projecting these perceptions that we have. And that's also part of like peeling the layers beyond the veil and that's stopping our ego from saying, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what it's supposed to look like. And that's also a big part of manifestation is like, we think that it should be this very
Mhm.
narrow-minded, like this very specific thing, and if it's not that thing, then it's not the thing. But that's spirit again and again. It's just open your mind and be receptive to what we give you. It may be what unexpected. It may be something that you didn't know that you wanted or have ever experienced before, but that's growth. That's how you grow. That's how you expand your consciousness and your understanding is to let go of those preconceptions and all of those images that we have.
Yes, yes. I love that you talked about the manifestation part because I think so many times, and not even, I do feel like we're manifesting all the time. So it's not even, hey, I want to manifest this thing. Literally, my life, I'm manifesting it right now because of all the things I've thought and the vibrations that I've sent out into the world. So how things come is so unexpected because like you mentioned, it's you don't you have this idea, and that's what I was going to say, it's not always manifestation. It's like your expectations of how work is supposed to flow, how a person's supposed to perceive what you're or receive what you're saying, and how they're supposed to act a certain way around you, or any of that stuff. These things that we have, we think it's supposed to be this way. And if it's not that way, it's not right. And when we open ourselves and we're open to the allowance of the universe bringing in what is meant for us, because it always does, it's meant for our highest good and our highest learning, then we can be open to having these new experiences or the experience that we want, but in a different way. It might not look exactly
Mhm.
like what you thought it would, but it's still serving you the same way.
Yeah,
And that's what I want to say about that. There was one
absolutely.
other thing that I want to say when you were talking about God. I love that you mentioned it's not this white guy, because I just refer to God as universe. And at first
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know if I believe in God. There was a while where I was like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything, all this stuff. But then I realized that no, I do believe in the universe. I believe in the universe's energy. And then I was maybe that not maybe, I think it is God in itself. I just call it something different. Just like somebody
Mhm.
else might call God something different. That is their God, because I do feel like it is that presence and I know it's around me all the time, and
Mhm.
there is an energy to it and it listens to me. And so that I just wanted to mention that for anybody that maybe also is searching for a meaning in something, maybe they don't resonate with the word or an all powerful one being, because I do feel like the universe is all powerful and it's everywhere and I'm part of it.
I love it.
And I love our conversation. Oh my gosh. So, do you have a particular area of study, such as astrology, ritual work, ceremonial magic, or any other divination practices that you felt most called to, and why?
Yeah, that's a good, also really great question. As it comes to divination specifically, I mostly study the tarot or the tarot. Multiple ways to say that one. I call it the tarot. That's just how that's what I call it.
Yeah.
And so it was one of my very first divination practices, cartomancy, or using cards to divine things. So that includes oracle decks and whatnot, but specifically the tarot, I have been studying for a very long, since I was 18. So about 18 years I've been studying it, and it's insane. And actually one of my friends said something really fun about it, where it's like, she called it this prostitute that's been around the block maybe a little bit too many times. And I'm like, "Oh, I actually totally understand that." But also, like, lots of experience, lots of things to delve into, because it's all about archetypes. And so that's one of the major ones. I am currently studying astrology, but specifically medical astrology, because I
Mm,
am a healer. And so that's my primary focus of spirituality, esoteric, magical, alternative, occult practicing, is a lot to do with the energetics of our body as it pertains to healing the body, not just through the body itself, but through the mind and soul, because they're all connected. It is the body, mind, soul, one word.
yeah.
And that's where a lot of my focus is on, in terms of the subject of magic and witchcraft and the occult and esoteric. But in divination, it really is astrology and tarot, or tarot. I do some pendulum work. Your body is a pendulum. And so that's actually really important. Your body itself is a pendulum and can tell you yes or no. And that is divination in and of itself, is
Is
like
that like this?
divining.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is that the sway test where you ask a question and you like see how your body sways?
That's one way to do it. Again, there's multiple ways to figure out your body's language. So you're just
Okay.
like figuring out the way that your body communicates yeses and nos. Sometimes that can be through a sway, but it's really just figuring out. If you want, if it's okay, I can do a really
Yeah.
brief, let's figure this out. Okay, great. Excellent. So what you want to do is center your body and center your breath. Center your focus on your breath and inside of your body, and just find some stillness there. And when you feel good with that, I'll be moving a little quicker than what I usually do. But when you feel good and you feel centered with your breath, the idea then is to invite what yes feels like. And sometimes this is used with a question that you already know the answer is yes to. So sometimes this is your name. So in this instance, I would say, my name is Jackie. And then I would feel what my body is feeling, or just noticing what my body does to that yes. Like, I already know that's a yes. And then just keep asking yourself questions that you already know the yes, that it is an emphatic yes. I'm sitting down. And so that's a yes. And so you just notice what information your body gives you to that yes. For me, that it feels a lot lighter. I feel an opening happening. Sometimes I'll sway forward, but I just know what that feels like. I feel calm a lot of the times. Some people can see a white light. Sometimes there's visualization. Sometimes there, just notice what information your body gives you for that yes. And then once you feel comfortable and confident with that, then you switch over to your no. And then just things that you automatically know are a no. For instance, I would be like, I was born with a penis. I was not born with a penis. And so I think that's one of like the very easy things, like my eyes are blue, my eyes are not blue. And so just things that are a no, or I enjoy the taste of licorice.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people really do like the
Yes,
taste
they
of
do.
licorice, though, and that's totally fine. So just like
But we hate
inviting.
those people. No, I'm kidding.
No, licorice is really good for you, actually. I'm not hating on that. It's a very powerful healing herb. And yeah, but I cannot stand the taste. And so I have to drink it down, even though I hate it. But yeah, just inviting what no feels like, and do that, and just noticing the information that your body is giving you. And for me, that usually I feel constriction. I feel a lot of tightness. And sometimes even see like an X up here. I am, because I have my eyes closed a lot of the time. And then once you get that, you know what yes, no, what yes is, you know what no is, then you can start practicing in real time of being like, okay, I feel lost. And then you can also learn that what maybe may feel like, right? Maybe there's some confusion. It's not really that clear, but the idea is to practice it, because the more you practice, the clearer it gets, because you're opening that channel to your intuition. So it takes a little bit of time. It's not always immediate. And if you don't know, then that's okay. Fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
And that's like that's a big part of witchcraft, is honestly, experience is your greatest teacher. You can read all of the books that you want to read. You can do all of the things, but you have to fuck around and find out, because that's what's going to tell you the most. Like, you can, okay, I'm going to get this thing. I don't know if it's yes or a no. And then you can be like, oh, that is a no, or that was a yes.
Yeah.
And so then you understand, and then you can know that for the future. And it just find that pattern recognition, that confirmation. Yeah. And so that's how you use your body as a pendulum. And that is divination. That is literally a form of divination. And it's one of my favorites. And I think it's essential, because then you know how to be that when you're empowered. Should I be eating these protein bars? Is that actually really good for me? Is what this person is telling me actually for me? Right. And so that way you get to find your power again of figuring out yes or no, because you're listening to yourself instead of an external validation. Because I think that people turn to the tarot, turn to pendulums, turn to bone throwing, turn to all these other divination practices, because they don't know how to listen to themselves. And that is empowerment 101, is learning how to listen to yourself and embodying that, and then holding your ground on that is the step number 2, like figuring out the information and then figuring out what to do about that information.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I have spent so much money on it's so funny too, because I feel like, and I'm sure that there's listeners out there that feel the same way, but it's like you get into, like, you want to hear a certain thing. And so I've paid so much money on astrology or a psychic or somebody that can tell me what I want to hear. And then when
Yeah.
they don't tell me what I want to hear, I'm like, you suck. I don't want to be
Right.
this person.
Yeah.
When internally, I always know what that message is. I just don't want to hear it either.
Yeah.
So I love that
Right.
you said go internally, because I feel like we can solve all of our own problems, all of our own fears, all of our stuff that's all pent up inside. Like, we know what to do and we know the right answers. We just don't want to listen, because a lot of times it's uncomfortable when we
Yeah.
actually listen.
Yeah, I also want to speak to that a little bit too, because I think that there is a lot of emphasis on we already have all of the answers, we already know everything, and that puts a lot of onus on the individual. And so it is also okay to ask for help, right?
Yes.
Nothing exists in isolation. And I think that it is important that if you don't know, or if you do know, but you just need some confirmation outside of yourself, just to be like, oh, okay, maybe I do know this, but I just need someone else also to tell me that that I know what I know, because it's nice to have that reassurance. But and that's how you reinforce community, and that's what
Mhm.
community is about. If we're not an island, yes, we have all the answers inside of ourselves, but we also need another perspective because we're still human and nothing exists in isolation. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned that because I think that was beautifully said, and it's true because I can get too caught up in sometimes the logistics of things and be like but I have to remember a lot of times that I am human too, because sometimes I get pissed off at myself for being like, you already know better than this. Why are you doing this? And it's
Mhm.
wait, we're still here. We still have human emotions and we still get caught up in our humanness. And that's okay. And that I think we all need to have compassion for. And sometimes when you're in, or at least I have when I'm in this work and I get really like you we were talking about before we started this podcast, it's you can get into that spiritual woo-ness and
Mhm.
almost like too high. And
Mhm.
then it's like you get really it's hard because you're still human. And it's hard to be like,
Right.
wait, why do I feel like this when I know better? And I'm
Yeah.
like floating around up here and I just want to stay floating around up here.
Yeah, absolutely. We get disassociated in that space for sure.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Disassociated.
Yeah.
So let's see. How can someone who's curious but maybe intimidated begin exploring witchcraft or esoteric work or any of those practices in a safe and grounded way?
I love it. My advice would be to start with the earth element, but mostly and specifically start with the elements. And that is like just very slowly observing. You don't have to like do anything, just observe, because that's how we can understand and attune ourselves to those energies without having to be like, okay, I mean, that I have to go get candles and I have to start doing these things. No, just start observing and aligning your awareness and attuning your awareness to the energies around you. Learn about the elements. And there are multiple different frameworks about the elements out there. We are taught in the Western world that there are five of them, and that is earth, air, water, fire, and then there's the fifth element, and that is spirit. And I starting there is a really great place because those five elements also correlate to other frameworks as well. Honestly, I would try and start there. There are the Chinese elements as well, and Ayurveda also has their own elemental frameworks. And I know that there are a couple others, and I think some traditional African practices have slightly different framework of that. I haven't done enough research on it. So I just want to recognize that there are other frameworks. Find one, pick one that resonates the most with you without overreaching or colonizing it, but find one that resonates with you and just observe and see if you can tune in one element at a time, one element at a time. It's okay if other elements are like, hey, I'm water, by the way. It's like, cool, okay, cool. I see you, water, but I'm still going to focus on this until I feel solid and grounded in this element, but one at a time until you feel like you've got a pretty good solid. And then from there start to work with those elements of, okay, cool, what does it mean to embody the earth element? I've been running the earth element through this whole year. I've just been like really jiving with the earth element, and it's super slow. It is so slow. This element is so slow, but it's slow because it's sustainable. It's
Mhm.
slow because it's foundational. It is building an empire one grain of sand at a time. And I love it so much. But and the elements have their own place too, but just one element at a time is a really great place to start. And your ancestors. You have to also do some decolonizing work.
For the Samhain or the Halloween holiday, or people that maybe aren't into or don't know what Samhain is, the October holiday, what kind of rituals do you do, or do you do any rituals? Is there any practices that you have done over the years, or is there something new, or do you not do anything at all? What does your October look like?
Yeah, actually, my birthday is 7 days after Halloween, and so I usually celebrate on Halloween, my birthday, and then I have a whole week to celebrate.
Nice.
Usually, it's my birthday because Scorpio represent, but I also for it's this year specifically has just been since I've been working with the earth element a lot, I've been much more in tune with the changing of the seasons. And we have officially started the progression of fall here in the Pacific Northwest. And it's just been really prominent. And that has been there's was a huge energy of harvesting. And so it's just harvesting all of the toils and all of the labor that we have been doing over the summer and even into the spring a little bit. So anything that I've been working on, this is the time of culmination and like bringing it in and harvesting it all. And then also putting everything to bed for the winter. And so that's just been like, I know that's not a big actual ritual, but all of those little rituals, those daily rituals of, okay, cool. And then literally receiving a bunch of bounty of people's food and harvest that they've been giving me has been really amazing. So honoring that and giving thanks to that is such a big part of it. But in the past, it's always been a time of those ancestral work because a lot of people like to be like, oh, the veil is thin on Samhain and all of these things. And that can be very true, but the veil is thin always if you know how to find it and know the thinner places or even just know how to cross over. But particularly the ancestors feel most alive during the fall and winter. And so it's really connecting with them, giving thanks for all of the bounty and all of their work and the fact that we're here and just spending time with that has been really huge. And then having a really great party on Halloween.
Awesome. My
Yeah.
one of my good friends, her birthday does land on Halloween, and I'm like, "How cool is that?"
It's the greatest. It's so cool that it's on actual Halloween. Yeah, that's magical as fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have this, but it just popped in my head. But if you have your tarot card deck nearby, would you like want to pull a card and just see
Yeah.
what the I don't know, the
I'd be happy.
reading gives us for October?
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. It's very quick. It's right there.
Oh,
I'll be
okay.
right back. Heck yes.
I just thought that'd be fun. See what the card pulls up
Yeah.
today.
Do a little reading. What comes up for your listeners for October, for you and your listeners, for everyone who has been participating in this podcast, that collective. Great. All right.
Yes, that'd be
Woo!
awesome.
We're live. Okay. Cool. Let me get situated a little bit.
Okay.
All right. For October. So there's also the Queen of Pentacles is definitely out and about right now. So that to me is like understanding your physical domain and yeah, what you have power and control over. Also, yeah, big harvesting stuff, but what are you nurturing as well? Like your physical environment, your material stuff, your work life balance is really a big part of that.
I was just gonna ask you if a card fell out, like if that was any significance.
Yeah, that was the Queen of Pentacles.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, that's good. For your collective, I'm going to pull three. Okay. The High Priestess, the Nine of Swords, and the King of Swords. Interesting.
May I ask why there's 3?
Yeah, I like three. One, because it's three is officially the number of pattern recognition. Excuse me. Three is officially the number of pattern recognition. So you pull one card, it's great. Maybe I have follow-up questions. So you pull another card and you're like, great, that maybe wasn't the full qualifier. You pull three cards, it's okay, this is a pattern. Then you get to
Okay.
the fuller picture. There are also some really great three-card spreads out there so they can it's you can find the tune. I'm very an intuitive reader. I don't always have a specific spread. It's really just like, all right, cards, what do you got for me? What's the message? And
Awesome.
three felt really important. So, yeah, the High Priestess is the first card. And so there's a lot of intuition, a lot of awakening. Maybe there is something that your listeners or yourself, whoever is listening to this podcast, maybe there is something that you have been neglecting that your intuition has been saying to you. that you are being told very clearly to listen to your intuition. You're being told very clearly, yeah, especially since there's a lot of swords here, that you have learning to do and that you need to get straight with what your body, what your intuition is telling you, especially in terms of, I wanted to say the divine feminine, but that might be not for everybody listening. Cool. Nine of Swords energy is also a lot of anxiety. Yeah, there's a lot of lack of clarity. Stop numbing your intuition. Stop. That's a really big part of it. Whatever you haven't been listening to, those thoughts. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Running it through your brain, obsessively thinking about all of the alternatives, about the maybes. What if I just did it this way? But maybe it could be that way. But maybe what if this, blah, 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 blah. A lot of your intuition is trying to get through to you. Your intuition has been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. There's a joke about that. It's trying to reach you. So you need to find stillness and you need to find quietness. You need to put down some of those efforts. You need to put down some obligations. Just pause for the cause. Stop trying to do so much for October and just really listen. You need to listen to the world around you, to yourself, to your nervous system. You need to listen to that nervous system and drink lots of water is also really coming through. But nurturing your nervous system, putting yourself in environments where you don't feel as much on pins and needles. There's also this, yeah, like doing the hard thing. Again, your intuition is telling you something that you have something that you are ignoring that you don't want to listen to, but it's screaming at you. And so you need to set up the foundations. You need to cut those cords or set up more mental boundaries for yourself so that way you can heal that. So you need to like, yeah, put up some boundaries for yourself because that's the King of Swords is
Mm.
also here. So that's, I don't really go too much with this is a male figure in your life, but it's more about embodying that boundary energy of protecting yourself as if like put a fortress around your nervous system. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance there. So I'm not saying hide away from the world, but create the boundaries and structures that you need in your life so that you can do the shit that you're being asked to do.
Oh, I
That's
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What a wonderful end
Yeah.
to this. Is there anything else that you felt called to share? We covered so much things in this podcast and it's so amazing. It was such a beautiful conversation with you.
Free Palestine. Yeah. That's just free Palestine and get ready. Get ready is the bigger one. I know that's an ominous note, but if you do consider yourself a witch, then now is the time to again, put up those boundaries to get yourself straight and get yourself ready for what we as a collective are being asked to do. And yeah, take care of yourselves and your communities and free Palestine. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate you being on the podcast and hopefully one day we'll meet in person.
I'd love that. Yes, this has been a true pleasure and I've really appreciated all of these questions. They were amazing. So thank you so much and for this opportunity to share this voice and these messages. So thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review so that we can connect with more people to develop our mind, body, and spirit.